I'm reading today from Rays of the One Light. These are Bible and Bhagavad Gita commentaries written by Swami Kriya-yoga and based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. This morning's topic is faith is a call to prayer, prayer is a call to faith. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, we read, "Ask, and it shall be given unto you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Verily, I say, if you have faith and doubt not, if ye shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things, whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." Yogananda showed by his own example that prayer is a power, provided we believe deeply in that power. When our thoughts and feelings are strongly focused and then united in growing awareness to the divine presence within, they can bring even seemingly unrealistic wishes into fulfillment. When Yogananda was in charge of his school in Ranchi, India, he took the boys on occasional outings to the surrounding countryside. There was a waterfall not far away, he told Swami Kriyananda, where I took them sometimes. It was dangerous to cross there, but I would cry out to the boys, "Do you believe in God?" "Yes," they would shout back enthusiastically, and so we always crossed in safety. Years later, after I had gone to America, one of the other teachers tried to do the same thing, but he lacked spiritual power. One of the boys slipped on a rock and was drowned. Thus the Master explained, belief alone is not enough. It must be united to one pointed awareness which leads to self-realization. The Bhagavad Gita underscores the necessity for such one-pointed concentration. Whenever the mind, fickle and restless, wanders off from its concentration, let the meditating yogi withdraw it resolutely, spurning every distraction, no matter how alluring, and bring it back again and again and again, under the control of the self. Thus through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Swami makes the point in his commentary in other writings that belief and faith, though very similar, are not exactly the same. It's more like a difference of degree. We can believe in someone or something, but that, as Swami says, is sort of a hypothetical acceptance. It's like believing that someone is honest, and so you entrust them with gemstones to carry somewhere and deliver. You have belief in them, but it's really when they're delivered that you have faith, or you start to have faith. Maybe they do this multiple times, and then you start to have faith in that person, that they're honest, that they will fulfill their duty, that they will do the honorable thing. And we have to start with belief. We have to start by believing in something. I've often thought we're all praying for something in our minds, but it may be a new TV, or it may be God knows what. Are you not hearing me?
Online, they can't
It's coming through the house, it seems like.
Just a little feedback. Now can you hear me better?
You're muted. You silent?
It's perfect. Okay, I wasn't saying anything like that. Okay, now everybody can hear me? Okay, so we're talking about the difference between belief and faith, and how we have to start with belief. We have to find something that resonates. When I was first handed Autobiography of a Yogi, I opened up to a passage and read a couple sentences, closed the book, gave it back. Not for me. And then some months later, I had found Ananda, and again, I just hitchhiked there, and I walked onto the scene, and Vasudeva, for those of you who remember him, handed me Autobiography of a Yogi. And I thought, okay. And then I walked into the kitchen and I saw a picture of Yogananda. I thought, okay, this guru is chasing me. And then I read Autobiography of a Yogi in 3 days and 3 nights, just couldn't put it down. And I realized that even though on page 2 or something, there's someone materializing in a cornfield, you know, the guru is appearing out of nothing. There were miracle after miracle after miracle. Just the book was filled with miracles. And I didn't know if they were true, but my mind just said, okay, yeah, we can believe that. But once you believe it, because I believed it because the vibration of the book felt true. I couldn't deny that feeling that I had in reading it, that I could trust this person. And so I did, trusted him with my life. It's worked out okay so far. But we have to start with that belief. And for me, finding these teachings it was like a revelation. I remember when I first heard about karma and reincarnation and started to understand what those things meant. Is this feeding back? It's like this sharp, okay. When I first understood what they meant, there was a huge relief. So much of my questioning and just floundering to understand why I was in this world, why there was so much injustice and babies born blind and all these horrible things that happen, the wars, the famine, all this stuff. Reincarnation, karma, gave me a huge incentive and understanding of why the world is the way it is. People are working out their karma. And we need to work out ours. And the best way to do that is to totally surrender to God's love. Reminds me of a story that Swami always used to tell of this very poor, uneducated man was dragged into the courtroom, and the judge was there saying to this man, "How do you plead?" And the man said, "I pleads for mercy." And so often I feel myself doing that. Just, please, Lord, just help me. That's the extent of my prayers. Oh God, please help me. It's not sophisticated, it's not complicated, it's just from your heart. And I think I'll read a little story that
I just didn't have time to memorize it, but it's so cute. It just reminds me of Swami Kriyananda's goofy sense of humor, which you don't always get in this world when you read his books and so on. But occasionally it just sort of pops out, and this one popped out about prayer. We have to pray with love. Love needs to be wholehearted, only when its attention is focused completely on the object of its love. So, imagine a young man telephoning his beloved and saying, "My darling, every minute that we spend apart is for me like an hourglass filled with soggy sand." So poetic. The slowly dropping seconds seem like tired workmen reluctantly turning spadefuls of dirt into a wheelbarrow. I mean, who can reject that kind of poetry? Dearest, like a parched valley yearning for revivifying rain, so my heart thirsts for that joyful moment when next we meet. Meet! Oh my God, the lamb chops! Mother made me promise to get them at the supermarket and I forgot. What on earth am I going to do? She's going to cream me. Guests are going to be here in an hour. I shouldn't be surprised if she served me up as the main course instead. Oh, sorry, sweetheart. Now, what was I saying? So Swami's saying, prayer and meditation, are they so very different than this young man's case and their need for focused attention? Concentration is essential for success in any worldly undertaking. Can it be less important in man's efforts to contact the subtlest reality of all? It is not possible to win God's love so long as one's love for Him is vague or sporadic. The devotee must exercise constant patience and determination. He must bring his mind back again and again and again to its spiritual focus. Until he learns concentration, though years pass away, he will find himself making no substantial progress at all. So we need to concentrate. We need to hone our love. We need to grow our faith. And we grow our faith by trusting, by putting our toe in the water and feeling how it is, trying a little bit. I remember a time when I do a lot of administrative detail stuff, and I don't particularly like details, so sometimes they slip away, and whenever they do, I get yelled at by somebody. You said the starting time was 7 and it's 6. All sorts of little details like that. I really try my best, but it's not easy. One time, I was lying in bed, drifting off to sleep, and one of these details came in. Oh no. And it was time sensitive. It was going to be the next morning. I was going to get in trouble again. I knew somebody would be mad. And my modus operandi would just be, okay, get out of bed, make the phone call, make a text, do something to make it better, or do my best to fix it. And this time, I just said, Lord, it's up to you. I give it to you. And it all worked out. So that's like putting your toe in the water. Just give God a little bit of leeway to work a little miracle in your life. And little by little, the miracles add up. So I'll tell you a story about my checkered childhood. And this is when I was in high school, and I had the math teacher from hell. And this lady was very old, didn't have a lot of patience left, and she was a screamer. And I don't think teachers would be allowed to get away with this, but in those ancient days, she would shake kids and hit them and scream in their face and all that sort of thing. So I was terrified. Every day I would dread being in her class. Every day I would sit there in terror. And I'd try to do the Jedi mind trick. You don't see me, I am invisible. Don't call on me, call on that guy over there. And so, needless to say, I was not learning very well in that class. I was frozen. And it got so bad. I was used to doing well in school, but it got so bad, my parents even got me a tutor for a while. We were heading into the SAT season, and my stress just kept building, just deeper and deeper, deeper stress. And finally, it culminated, as these things do, on the day of the test. And I had been so wound up and terrified that I just sat there. And, you know, you're supposed to look at the question, and if it seems like you don't understand, move on, because you'll just keep doing more and more, and you can come back to that one. I looked at every one. I didn't understand anything. There was a piece of white paper to do your calculations on. It was completely blank. And because I had suffered so much and just been in this state of trauma for so long, by that moment, I was completely calm. I had nothing left. There was no, it was like a flatlining. I just had no emotion left. I had no fear left. I was already dead. There was nothing else anybody could do to me at that moment. And so, I hadn't thought of this before, but in that moment, I just lifted up my consciousness and said, God, you have to help me. So I was humbled. I'd never not been able to learn something before. I was completely calm, and I surrendered totally to God, because I didn't have a choice. No matter what I did, it hadn't worked. And I gave it completely to God. Now also, I was completely still. And so I could hear this little voice saying, well, for one thing, it's okay. You're never going to need this in your whole life. And I haven't. But what it really was saying was, just look at the questions and decide what the most reasonable answer is, because they were all multiple choice, thank God. So I just calmly went through and said, okay, I'm pretty good at logic, so yeah, that's probably the answer. And I turned it in, and my scrap paper was completely blank. And I left before anybody else. I was just like, okay, here it is. And some weeks later, I was sitting in class. It hadn't started yet, but I was sitting at my desk writing something. And some of my friends were up at the blackboard looking at something, and they were making these, oh my gosh, kind of sounds. And pointing at me and saying, you got to get up here and look at this. So it turned out the SAT scores were there. And I had gotten in the 99th percentile. I'm not kidding. And I don't know if I said in that moment, I should have, for the benefit of my friends who were looking at me like, what? How did you do? You know, they had lived through this with me. They just were blown. Their minds were blown. I should have said, my friend, that is the power of prayer. God will come through when you stop trying and you stop thinking, oh, I can do this. This is, my life. I'm smart. I can do stuff. Give it up. Give it to Him. It will come out better than you could ever dream. But we have to have that love. We have to cultivate that. We can practice and practice and practice, like Swami is saying in this little story. And we won't make any substantial progress until we crack open our hearts and give Him our love and surrender to His wisdom, His plan for us. And then it's the most joyful life possible, because then you see Him in everything and everyone, and you realize God is the doer. God is the one in charge of my life. And the more you give to Him, the happier it will be.
I'll segue onto the story Nirmala was telling about belief and prayer, or the different points she was making. I'll just offer a story of being around Swami Kriya-yoga and observing how he would work with those two concepts in terms of people that were around him. And he, as the decades advanced, and particularly in the last decade of his life, which is when we were with him the most, we lived with him in the same house, his hearing got deteriorated, and it used to be something of an adventure, because every year we would make a trip to Italy or America where he would purchase yet the latest, newest, greatest set of hearing aids. And, everybody would be thrilled at how much better his hearing would be, but then after a month or two, it would be more or less the same as it was before. Anyway, the hearing was an issue, but we also realized that it was somewhat selective. And here's how it was selective. So somebody comes to him with some brilliant idea. And of course, usually when people present the brilliant idea is they're hoping that he'll do the brilliant idea, or somebody else will do the brilliant idea. You learn very quickly when you have brilliant ideas around him that you get the job of executing the brilliant idea yourself, which has a natural tendency to kind of diminish the ridiculous enthusiasm and channel it a little more usefully. But there were definitely people who would have kind of wild and crazy ideas about what they themselves could do. And his attitude or his response was kind of, okay. And it's not, now this is the interesting point. It's not that he was saying, I don't believe you. It was him saying, I want to believe you, but I don't have enough data yet, so show me. And over time, what would happen is, if consistently they would say, I'm going to do X, and they did, and I'm going to do Y, and they did, and I'm going to do Z, and they did, and all the way through the alphabet. At a certain point, after 10 or 20 or 50 of those I'm going to do, and they did, he would start to listen carefully to what they said. It's not that he ignored it before, it's that he started to